This is the 2025 Triumph Speed Twin 1200, and this really is on one end of the spectrum of the modern classic range, and you've got the Speedmaster, the T100, the T120 on the other end of the spectrum. So this is really the sharpest tool in the box, but is it too sharp? The 1200 Speed Twin is just as fast engine wise as the Speed Twin 1200 RS, but the RS has got more sort of adjustability in the suspension. It's got more tech when it comes to that side of things, but whether you need that on the road or not is another question, because this is plenty enough for the road. This is a very fast motorcycle. It's got very sharp handling, it corner really well. So if you like that sort of riding, you like riding fast and you really love twisty lanes, then you'll really like this motorcycle because it does it very well.
So this is very much more of the modern than the classic in the modern classic lineup. You've got twin shocks on the back, which I love, and a very beautiful swing arm, a lovely shape. A good looking engine. It's the sort of Bonneville engine that's in all the models in the 1200 guys. You do have them in 900cc as well. Got a nice looking petrol tank. But aside from those things, most of the design on the bike, apart from that, is very modern and cutting edge. You've got the upside down forks. You've got an off-centre modern speedometer with a few bits of information in it. It's not as nice as the outgoing model, which had the twin analog dials, which is a shame, and it's offset. The headlight's quite low down. You've got a very, very steep brake, which gives you that sharp, super sharp handling. So you've got to love that sort of riding. If you want a bike to burble around the country lanes on a Sunday afternoon and not go particularly fast, this wouldn't be the best one to choose. You'd be much happier on a Triumph Speedmaster or T100 or T120, or maybe some of the other Bonnevilles. This is really about going fast and carving up the corners and scraping parts of your body. So if that's you, then you'll love it. Now, if you've got a fast motorcycle, you also want excellent brakes, and this does have excellent brakes. You've got double discs at the front, huge double discs, and a single disc at the rear, and this will stop in no time whatsoever. So to go with that sharp handling and snappy power, you've got the brakes to match.
Now, on each of the Bonnevilles with the 1200cc engine, they are tuned differently, and in this bike they're tuned for high speed and power. This model produces 103.5 brake horsepower at 7,750 RPM and 112 newton meters of torque at 4,250 RPM. So it's got a nice torquey engine low down, and you do find that you can sort of trundle along in second or third gear, and it doesn't kick up a fuss in low RPMs, but it will pull hard from any RPM, and it really does go. It pulls nice and linear throughout the RPM range. For me, this is too fast, but it's very fast. You know, you don't need any more power than this on the road, and it surprises me how much power some of these sports bikes have got, or super bikes have got these days, because anywhere other than on a track, if you ask me, they're absolute death traps. I wouldn't set foot on one. In fact, we did get offered to do a press day with a super bike. I won't name which one it is, but I turned it down because it's not for me. Not just about performance of the engine, it's also nice to have a bit of character, and these Bonneville engines do certainly deliver that. They've got a nice throaty sound, they're very deep sounding. This exhaust is quite a nice looking exhaust, and it does sound pretty good for a standard exhaust. We've got the Speedmaster as well at the moment, and that's obviously got the 1200cc engine as well, but it's tuned slightly differently, and you've got a much different exhaust on that. It does sound a bit deeper and slightly louder on the Speedmaster actually. But this has got lovely sort of pops and burbles. It's got a really nice, just grunty sound, and coupled with this gearbox has got a really lovely feel. It's got a nice clunkiness throughout the gears. It's very positive feeling, and it just feels nice to change gear on a Triumph Bonneville.
I'm 6'2". I have to think about that. Now this is what I look like. Now it's a sporty riding position. You're leaning forward. You've got quite little pullback on the bars. I was going to say quite straight. Your feet are behind you, so it's a sporty ride. And you do find, as you're riding along, you start sliding forwards like that, and you end up on the tank. So you have to keep repositioning yourself. So it's a bike that offers a sporty riding position, not a comfortable riding position. But if you're taller than me, I'd say it's probably a bit small. If you're shorter than me, you're probably going to find it fine. If you're 5'10"-ish, 5'11", you probably find it's the perfect size for you. Now, while we're on the subject, it's got a pillion pegs and a seat, so you can sit on the back with your friend. I don't know if it's the sort of bike I'd want to go very far on the back of, because it's so fast you'd have to be holding on for dear life. You do have a little strap there, but I reckon the speed this has got, you could easily pull that off. So short journeys to the shops, yes, but it's not really a two-up bike for long distance travelling.
Now the rake and trail on this bike are really very steep and short. The rake is 22.4 degrees and the trail is 91 millimeters, so that gives you that really quick, sharp steering, and at slow speed it makes this bike less manoeuvrable because it's got such a steep rake. You can't have a very good turning circle, because if it turned too much it would just want to flop over itself. So it's got a really sort of bad turning circle. It's quite you have to shunt it back and forth to turn it around in a sort of tight 1.5 sized lane. So it's not the easiest bike to manoeuvre because of that. The fuel tank is 14.5 litres, and Triumph say this bike will do 64 miles per gallon, which is pretty damn good, especially for the amount of performance this bike delivers. You certainly would not get that out of a car with similar performance figures. Now you've got a USB-C port on this Speedo up here, which is nice to have, and it's in a good position, not under the seat. But talking about this Speedo, it's not my favourite. Perhaps if you're buying a bike like this and you want a more sporty bike, maybe you want a more modern digital speedometer. I don't know, you tell me in the comments below if this is a bike that you're considering. Do you like this digital dial, or do you prefer the beautiful analog twin dials that you had on the previous model? And now, if it was up to me, I like the fact that this is round. That's a good start. I don't like the fact that it's off centre. It should be in the middle. That is a trend at the moment with all manufacturers. I don't understand it. It makes zero sense to me. It just looks wrong. It's in the wrong place. And if you look at some other motorcycles like the Royal Enfield Bear 650, that's got a round digital dial, but it's got a screen that fills the whole of the dial, and it's got probably more features than this does, and it's a much cheaper motorcycle. So if they are going to go with the digital dial, I think they could take a bit of design inspiration from Royal Enfield on that one. It weighs 216 kilograms, which isn't that heavy, but when you are manoeuvring it, because of the sort of hard turning circle, you start to feel the weight a bit. But when you're moving along, you don't feel that so much. It's got two modes, which are road and rain, which is nice to have because this bike is so powerful. If it's a really wet day, you don't really want to put all of that power down, and you could get yourself into some trouble. So that's nice to have.
So who is this bike for really then? It's definitely for somebody who doesn't like that insect look of a lot of modern sports bikes and sport naked bikes, and you have this sort of seat that goes up like here, and you know, a gap like that high above the wheel. I mean, that's, if you don't like that look, you're going to like this because it's just as fast and just as sharp, but at least it's got a bit of style and a bit of character. It looks beautiful. So that's who it's really aimed at. Now, price. I can't remember anything, so I have to write it down. If you want this one, red and black, it's £12,845 in the United Kingdom. Obviously look on the website for Triumph in your country because the prices vary. Black and white is £12,895 and silver is £12,495. Of course you can get finance from your Triumph dealer, so talk about that. Who's got 12 grand in their pocket? Not many people. So what do you think of this bike? Is it for you? I'd like to know if it's the sort of bike you would want to have, and what you feel about it. If you've got one, let us know all about it. It's very interesting to hear your comments always. and of course subscribe for more, because there's lots of interesting bikes coming.